Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll call the February 10th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Time 6 p.m. Roll call. We have a quorum here. We have our planning director on Zoom, our township engineer, one of our township engineers on Zoom. Other in the room, Megan? So the first order of business is to approve the January 13th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 13th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion was properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So before I turn the meeting over to Nate, just a couple quick reminders to speak into the microphone. Even though we're a small group, we want to make sure that the recording is ADA compliant. And Nate, I'll turn over to Nate in a moment, but as Nate, before you take it over, if the applicant can come sit up front, we invite you to sit up front. I'm sure there'll be some comments. And before Nate takes over the meeting, if you don't mind just introducing yourself, and then I'll turn the meeting over to Nate from there.
Eric Hornung with Hornung Architects.
Coming from the SJ Development.
Jason Schweier with Keystone Consulting Engineers.
Excellent, thank you. And I should have said we have 3 agenda items this evening. The first agenda item is 6048 Hamilton Boulevard, the Hamilton Dental Office. So I'll turn it over to Nate. Take us away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. So, so for 6048 Hamilton Boulevard, this is a plan that was received recently for the conversion of an pre-existing single-family home into a dental office. The property rests on Hamilton Boulevard directly between EBC Printing and the Trexler Business Center. And the plan will be up on the screen in just a second. The plan contemplates basically converting that building, adding a addition to the rear of the structure in the form of a second floor, and removing the carport and providing new access with parking in the rear. We've conducted a review at the staff level with a planning letter as well as a zoning letter. The technical review by the township engineer is forthcoming. And it's actually something that we've seen quite often on Hamilton Boulevard. These adaptive reuses are supported in our planning documents and allowed for by our zoning. I should note, though, from a zoning perspective, due to the size of the lot being just about a half an acre, a special exception will be required for the property to be able to be converted. The applicant's aware of that, so they'll be submitting that application, which will also be reviewed by the Planning Commission and then go to the Zoning Hearing Board. That's essentially the 30,000 foot up overview of the project. I'd like to give the applicants the opportunity to introduce it. They're here this evening to solicit feedback from the Planning Commission, recognizing that they still have a couple of steps, but they wanted to get feedback from the Planning Commission to incorporate into any future submissions. And so with that, I would like to hand it over to the applicants to introduce their project in more detail.
Thanks, Nate. Again, this is Jason Schweier with Keystone Consulting Engineers. So to touch on Nate's overview of the project, it is a proposed dental clinic that is proposed as this redevelopment here along Hamilton Boulevard. The site is currently serviced by all-out water and public sewer. The proposal will be to connect to public water and maintain the existing public sewage treatment. We will
Yeah, I mean, I could just speak to that. I had a conversation with Jason earlier today, and Jason, we will give you a copy of that adopted ordinance, but as part of our ordinance adoptions from the fall, the street wall is required now as part of the zoning ordinance along Hamilton Boulevard.
I see a raised hand from Brian. And then we probably should, after Brian, turn it over to Megan if there are any technical issues you wanted to share. Brian, is your hand raised?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Isaias. I just wanted to ask the applicant and their team to make sure they get real close to the microphone, because I could not understand anything that was just said. They got to be real close to the microphone.
Gotcha, thank you.
Did you have any comments, Megan?
No, our technical comments will be addressed in our forthcoming letter. That's about where we stand right now.
Do you want to repeat your comment about the street wall requirement that you were mentioning in your comments before the planning commission provides their feedback?
Yeah, we were just confirming that the street wall would be something the planning commission would be looking for. I think we do understand that that isn't a requirement, so there is really no further discussion, but that was just kind of what we wanted to look at there, just to verify.
So I guess I'll open it up now for any members of the planning commission to comment. Any comments, concerns, issues you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I do have one thought in the planning portion of it. So I'm familiar with the land pretty well because I live right behind it. And I'm also a First Commonwealth member, so I go there often. And one thing that I know is that that parking lot affiliated with First Commonwealth is very rarely used. It's not ever full when I've ever been there. So my thought is, if a shared parking amendment, agreement, whatever we want to call it, could be considered between whether it's Jandal or First Commonwealth and the dental office. This would reduce the amount of impervious land that is needed for parking in the back of it, and could provide more, native planting, what have you. There's at least, I don't know how many people will be in the dental office at one point in time, but I'm thinking there's probably like 15 cars at once. And obviously some sort of walkway would have to be put between the front of the building, assuming that that is the front door, ADA compliant. But I sort of just wanted to open that up for a discussion to see if that could be a possibility to reduce, concrete, heat, that type of thought.
Yeah, what we're showing on the plan is 14 required parking spaces. We're meeting that requirement exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts? I know we have the ADA access, so we would need access either way there. I think that's something we can consider. It would take some investigation to see, what their parking requirements are.
Sure.
If they have access, but certainly I think we can look at.
Yeah, I just think it's, I know that the lot has just an insane amount of parking there, and to reduce any sort of more concrete, I think that would be good. And I also, when I was driving by there the other day, I was going not really fast, but relatively speeding. And the opening to the First Commonwealth driving area to the parking is much wider than what exists now as like the driveway. So I think that could also reduce any sort of braking potential accidents, or because you really have to slow down in order to take a right into there. So I think that would sort of help mitigate anything like that. That's just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
And while we're on
Are you able to pull up I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you able to pull up the design companion, Vince? I think it would be helpful for the planning commission to see, before we get too far off of the topic, what we were talking about with the street walls. We originally contemplated fencing as well in the design companion, but after a bunch of submissions settled on the street wall, it helps block headlights, and it provides a cohesive look for Hamilton. So But I definitely think it would be good for the applicants and the planning commission to see that up on the screen. So this is the architecture structure that's being proposed. This is where we would want to see in the future where the street wall would be incorporated for the planning commission to take a look at. But the project design companion shows the architecture of the proposed structure, the signage, and a couple of the other elements. So this should be helpful. You can see the second floor addition there at the rear of the structure. That monument sign, I believe Chris put it in his letter. We would need to ensure that that's a monument sign. Right now it's a small pylon sign, so it would require stone base. Thanks for that, Vince.
I wanted to follow up on the parking comment that Jen was making. I wanted, if you can clarify for us where the parking is intended to occur. Is it in the side, the back? Is no parking in the front? There are also some other questions around, given space concerns, dumpster location, getting a sense of, just walk us through some of those issues, please.
Yeah, so the main parking would be behind the building there. We do have 2 spots shown in the front, one at ADA compliant parking space, which leads right to the front entrance. The remaining 12 spaces are behind with walkway, pedestrian access to the doors. We do need to look at, we did confirm with the dentist that they will require a dumpster pad. So we will have to look at locations for that. Because of the tight space maneuverability of the site, we likely have to locate it somewhere behind parking spaces and just require them to pick up in an off-hour time period.
So that would be placed behind, where would that go?
I think either be on the western side of the parking in the back. Potentially, we might be able to reconfigure some of the spaces and put the pad at the very end of the drive. Or probably the third option would be coming straight down the driveway into that open area on the eastern side of the property.
And knowing your updated diagram, I think one of the questions earlier or comment was the garbage truck access, showing that.
Correct, yeah, so in a subsequent submission, we'll show that access. It will have to kind of do a K-turn within that parking area to get in and get out, just because we're kind of limited on the width of the site.
How about emergency vehicle access?
Yeah, that one we're also confirming, but we'll be able to get that emergency vehicle up to the building.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns about the parking area?
No.
So I wanted to move on to this.
Sorry, just
go ahead.
with that parking on that same subject. So there's a comment in the zoning letter, number 4, about the parking in the front of the building. Ordinance-wise, to us, it seems like it prohibits parking in the front for new buildings. So we just wanted to discuss whether having these 2 parking spaces would actually be an issue if we're kind of retrofitting an existing building.
Jason, I can comment on that. In looking at the language of the ordinance, I don't really know that it says if there's an exemption for a reuse. So I think in order to keep those spots there, when you apply for the special exception, you probably have to include that as well. Yeah.
So if there are any other questions, comments, or concerns about the parking, I was wondering if you can talk us through some of the comments around the stormwater threshold issues and issues around buffering or other things that are going to be done to kind of attenuate some of those concerns.
Yeah, so from a stormwater perspective, we're well less than 10,000 square feet of new impervious. So there's an existing driveway, there's an existing garage, there's existing patios in the back that are being removed. So there's a net increase in impervious of about 4,000 or 5,000 square foot off the top of my head. Buffer-wise, we don't have any required buffers. There's an existing arborvitae row between this property that fronts the EPC printing, which would be maintained. Since we're surrounded by commercial on all sides, we don't have any required buffering requirements.
Any other questions about the stormwater issues? And then, in terms of the PennDOT process, right? So we know that that could be a lengthy process. Could also require additional modifications to the plan. What are your thoughts on kind of some of the design concerns that may come up given the driveway, the narrow requirements of the driveway needing a wider area?
Well, the width of the driveway there would comply with PennDOT requirements, so we're widening that existing driveway to 24 feet.
But it narrows at one point at 20, and then it goes
It
back out
narrows
at
within
24.
the site, so that relates to number 3 in the zoning letter. To comply with the 10-foot setback from the building, we narrowed that drive in between the parking, front parking and rear parking to 20 feet, so we can comply with that section of the ordinance. The remainder of the aisle is 24 feet the rest of the way. We have submitted a scoping application to PennDOT, which is under current review. We would anticipate them in a short period of time letting us submit for the low volume driveway.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions,
No.
concerns? Any questions or concerns from the public? Comments? Okay.
If we want to go back to the architectural renderings, I can discuss those a little bit more. That's all right.
Thank you.
So architecturally, specifically addressing some of the comments as far as the rear space now, the existing footprint is being used with the exception of the garage being demolished and also an addition of a vestibule in the front towards the street. And we're basically trying to have more of a residential feel within a commercial space. That's why we're adding gable fronts to the vestibule, but also taking into your concerns how this two-story rear space is viewed from the street. And we felt the best way to address that, to not dwarf the rest of the building in the forefront, was to have a flat roof with a wood truss system. So we're trying to minimize how this roof system. We originally had a gable roof on it, and it dwarfed the rest of the building from the street. So we made that design change and made it a flat roof. So now we have this sliver from the perspective from the street. You will see the top of it a bit, yes. That is just by the nature of the space needed within the addition. However, we minimize that by using a flat roof that has a 1/4 inch per foot pitch to it. We have some stone horizontal banding, and that is to blend in with the residential neighborhood that surrounds, as well as some verticality with some wood to really soften it up. And we did update the monument sign design, so that is already complete. And we also have, for the vestibule, we have 2 exits, one coming straight out to the handicap parking, the other one connecting around to a new concrete walkway that goes down to the parking lot in the back. We did, on the front elevation, we did lower the sills so we can have sort of a larger commercial feel with the windows. So we took out the existing 3x4 windows, which is pretty typical, and that large picture window over to the left, and lowered the sills a bit more to have it a bit more of a commercial feel, but still be in the residential zone. There is some standing seam metal roof that was specified by the owner, and that would be the roof finish. I think that covers all the architectural comments, I think.
Thank you for that explanation. I do know that our planning commissioner, Ryan Kennedy, who is also an architect, I'm sure at your future appearances, they'll be able to provide much more expertise and discussion with you on the design. So I look forward to that.
Okay.
So we know your goal was for feedback. What other questions do you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's all we had based on the review letters we have to date. So if there's any other feedback the planning commission has at this point, we really just want to discuss those items and get a sense of where the commission was at on this project.
Excellent. Sounds like everything was answered from the questions that you had. So anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So our next agenda item is the zoning ordinance update, presentation, and discussion. And I believe our planning director, Nate, will be taking us through that. You're on mute.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair, and for the reminder. As the applicants are filing out here for the dentist office, I'd just like to bring to everybody's attention and give my thanks to our community development director, Vince, our zoning officer, Chris, our township solicitor, Mark, for all their feedback as we've been working on this. We wanted to get you a version of this ordinance that is as complete as possible. I would preface everything by saying, as kind of discussed when we talked about the ordinance modifications in the fall, as required by law, as required by the MPC, and recognizing that this use is now becoming more commonplace nationally and within the region, it is our duty to regulate it as needed. So that's what this is for. We're doing this as a compliance measure to ensure that we're lawfully regulating the use. With that being said, we've done a lot of research by not just looking at peer communities within the region and what their language has been, but also by looking at research interregionally in the western part of the state and in other states such as Virginia and Florida and up in New England about how they are managing this growing new use. And we've incorporated much of some of the findings that they've had elsewhere in the nation into our considerations for this ordinance as well. I'd note that the uses permitted currently, is allowed in the industrial, Orlick, and highway enterprise zones. This ordinance would recommend making them conditional uses in each of those zoning districts so we could have a hearing process to ensure that standards are in place for quality of life and health, safety, and welfare for the community. And again, as we've kind of discussed in the past, especially when reviewing our abutting communities language, the main items and topics that we look to cover are consistently the water usage, electrical usage, emergency service response and ability to serve the site. And then, of course, our classic for all conditional uses, health, safety, and welfare items to ensure quality of life for our residents with proper buffering and ensuring our quality of life character of community and enforcing and putting in place our design guidelines to make sure that we have the right type of landscaping and buffering and so on and so forth. So with that, if you were to look at the ordinance, it does run through each one of those items and does prescribe certain standards for the use. And in other places, it does have certain items that are also prescribed outside of our design guidelines and buffers. But, for water, we're looking at ensuring that there's public water to serve the site. We are consistently interested in ensuring that we're protecting our residences, our local businesses, and our farms in the township, of which we have worked very hard with our local farmers to continue to preserve and keep active agriculture in the community. Part of that is ensuring that we have public water service. Also, we are calling for an environmental impact study that has specific standards in it that the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners will be able to review so that you can make a well-informed decision in ensuring that the impact of the use does not have any negative impacts on the community, and all of its operations are appropriately mitigated per the ordinance. So I would note, Mr. Chair, you brought up when we previously looked at it about proper distancing for the use. And in this particular case, we are looking at 1,000 feet from the property line for residences, schools, places of worship, and life care facilities and daycares. The purpose for that is similar to the sensitive receptor language that we've seen in previous ordinance. And we did feel that the 1,000 feet would hopefully gain interest from the Planning Commission to ensure what we're trying to achieve with our quality of life measures and protecting those uses. So, with that, I was hoping to have a back and forth discussion with the Planning Commission, get as much feedback as we can as possible. In the optimal timeline, we'd like to take your feedback this evening and hopefully take the feedback separately from our planning commissioners who couldn't be here this evening and provide to you in March a finished document that you might be comfortable with for us to be able to move forward with adoption. But with that, I'd like to open it up and see if you would like to talk about any particular portions of the ordinance, or if I could answer any questions for you, and we could go from there.
Nate, where are the possible placement of a data center in our community right now?
I would say, yep. So in the industrial district, in the Orlick district, and the highway enterprise zone. So that is immediately abutting Route 78, where currently Topgolf and the Lehigh Valley Town Center are proposed. So it kind of nullifies that property with the current proposal that we have on the books. And then in the industrial in Orlick, this area is near Mack Trucks along Albertus Road, Shannick Road, where we currently have other industrial activity in the township.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to compliment Nate, you and your team for putting together such a thorough document. It reads well. I think it goes through a lot of the things that we were thinking about and concerned about. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing this document be routed and circulated. Any other comments or questions or concerns?
Yeah, I do have a couple of points that I would like just to give my feedback on. I do appreciate the time that was put forth to put something like this together, because sometimes the hardest things are just getting the first words on the page, to finish out your ideas. So I appreciate the time and effort in starting this. I think the most important thing for me is a little bit of the environmental focus. And specifically, I think it is somewhat, there's parts of it that are somewhat vague, and maybe they are vague intentionally, so that's fine if that could be sort of explained a little bit more in detail. But as we see data centers, I'm assuming that we all know that data centers use a lot of energy and a lot of water. And I look at our township as we value our land and we value the resources that we have available to us, and residents and or people choose to move here, as well as businesses choose to conduct their businesses here because of the resources that we give them, health, welfare, safety, and just overall lifestyle. So I think it's important for us to be a little bit more, I don't want to use the word strict, but that's the only word I can think of right now, to have some notes in here with some specific numbers that if a data center were to come in, we could measure it. And data centers, they do have a lot of financial resources to them, so we could look at it as two ways. We could look at it as a detriment because they use a lot of energy and water that we as residents require. But we could look at it as an opportunity to take things such as renewable energy to the next level because of the financial resources that they can give us, or not us in Lower Macungie per se, but possibly the state. So specifically, I was looking at how they get cooled, and I do appreciate the closed loop system. But I also think that it's important to put in there the liquid cooling mandate and having some specifics regarding the sound that is outside alongside of like the buffer that they would have to put in, and putting some decibel measurements in there in order for us to be able to measure their sound requirements. Typically those systems, so a lot of data centers will put in like evaporative cooling, which just puts basically fresh water in the air, and it becomes, a big waste and increases the amount of heat in the area. So a liquid cooling is basically it's a coolant, a non-conductive coolant that goes directly against the computers, and it keeps them on a cooler area. But in order to do that, you have to have a system outside to do that. So that does produce a noise. It produces sort of like a tonal noise. So I think adding some details around the decibel measurements is important. Another item that kind of goes along with the acoustics is, again, putting some measurements in there to say, doing a study, a third-party study, to measure the ambient noise that is normally existent, because with data centers, they tend to have like a hum, and although that can kind of not only be annoying for humans, you kind of get used to it, but it's also an issue with, habitat fragmentation and biodiversity loss. So we could potentially have a detriment for our, animals, birds, et cetera, within our area. So I think it's, again, it's important for us to look at the levels in which they operate and to maintain a specific number. I also think that the amount of heat that they sort of waste, you can actually have them implement like a recover and reuse a percentage of that heat that is wasted and actually put it back into the municipal district available for residents, commercial, what have you, so it's actually reused. And then another component regarding the renewable energy that I would like to see is there's a lot of renewable energy projects that are either stalled or possibly haven't started within the state. And I think if we were to state that they have to sort of have an additionality clause within the ordinance, so that if they do want to use our land, come here and be an important place within Lower Macungie for whatever reason they choose, that we mandate that they have to use renewable energy. And that doesn't just mean that they buy into credits to an existing project. That means that they either start a new project or fund an existing project that has gone by the wayside because there's lack of funding. And there are some of them out there within the state that exist like that. So I think that that's the opportunity. If, if we did accept, I shouldn't say accept, but if we did have data centers in our area, that we're at least helping the greater good for not only the state, but also the world as far as the growth of renewable energy. And that's not just to say, okay, they can put some solar panels on top of their roof. That's wonderful, but that's not going to touch the amount of energy that they consume. That might help the office, which is great. Then they're not taking from what we as residents and or businesses already consume. So those are my thoughts.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. A lot of great feedback. So Nate, how do you want to handle this? You want to unpack those items one by one? Do you want us to consolidate all of the feedback at one point? Do you want to give some thoughts back to Jen's comments regarding her great suggestions?
He looks like he's frozen.
Hi. Nope.
He did look frozen.
Hi. Sorry about that. Yes. No.
So, did you hear the question?
Actually, I think it did freeze up a little bit there. I apologize. So yeah, I think we could unpack them one by one. I definitely feel we talked about sound insulation, like dampeners or whatnot. I think that's certainly something that we can look into incorporating into the language and checking to see if it's possible without triggering any concerns should we receive an application. With regards to the noise and the sound concerns from the exterior of the property, I would note that this is something that we spent a lot of time internally going back and forth on, because I should note that we do not, as a township, generally regulate at that level with respect to decibels. We do have other means of doing it. In fact, if it's okay with you, Mark, Solicitor Fisher, I'd like to kind of get your feedback on that because you've had firsthand experience with it, with some of the other noise concerns that we've had in other instances in the township. And I think you've put together a pretty strong clause or language in the ordinance that you feel might cover us, or if we can look at further options moving forward, we can. I would just note that, the township at this juncture does not generally go out and take sound measurements for any noise complaint.
Sure, Nate, I can talk about that. So the noise paragraph took the longest, and it's, as you mentioned, purposely vague. The reason is because when we write ordinances, any ordinance, not just zoning, the enforcement of the ordinance is the most difficult part of the ordinance. So we can write the greatest ordinance ever that regulates the heck out of some use or issue that we foresee down the road. But if we have no way to actually regulate it, it's meaningless, right? So the decibel level is part of that problem because we do not have a trained specialist with a decibel meter that's going to be able to go out there and determine whether the center is violating the noise provision at any given time. So the way we sort of envisioned this initial draft of this is that they're going to have to submit this study to tell us what the sound is going to be like, and what that gives what that study will give the Planning Commission the opportunity to do is to see what the potential impact is or the sound levels are, and then impose specific conditions in a conditional use decision that would be recommended to the board to impose upon the use. So it would be specific to that user as opposed to a general ordinance requirement. making it potentially easier to enforce because we would know specifically what they have to do. Maybe it would be the sound dampening system to try to contain the sound within their property, right? Instead of trying to measure the sound outside of their property with decibels or whatever type of sound measurement system there might be out there. Definitely the hardest part of this whole process has been the sound part. And it's probably, other than the energy, is the most important based on what we've heard from you guys and what Nate has researched.
So how does that work if, they present a study and they're like, oh, well, it's going to be, 35 decibels at this time of day and 60 at this. And then they come in, they build, they're here for a year or what have you, and they're at the 70 level, 80 level. At what point does the township, what legal point does the township say, well, you're beyond reasonable? And what leg do we have to stand on for those who, are annoyed by it, or it's difficulty? It's noise pollution.
It's definitely going to be complaint based. It would have to be coming from the residents that surround it. There shouldn't be any residents near it because we're putting in 1,000 feet prohibition.
Right.
But I would assume, like most code enforcement issues in the township, it's complaint based. So you're going to get complaints from one person and then the next person and the next person, and the township is going to have to go out and make a determination of whether the sound that's coming out of this building or lot is unreasonable. And that is a legal standard. Reasonableness is a legal standard. So that's really why that language is in there.
Yeah, I noticed the reasonable person.
Yeah, so
I looked it up.
Right. So that without the ability to measure decibels, we have to come up with some other standard to use.
And what about Jennifer's comment about the environment, right? The embedded environment around, so the animals, right? So clearly,
the biodiversity.
Outside of the human element of noise. Your concern, I think, was the environmental.
Yeah, so you're going to affect, the birds and any other animals that are around there who they're just normally there.
So would the study address
nesting?
It could. I mean, it certainly could. If that's something, a point of feedback that you wanted in the study, we could certainly add that as a one of the criteria that they have to include in the study, how it might affect habitats or something, whatever the case may be, assuming there is measurable data on how the sound affects the birds or the cows or whatever might be around.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I look at it from the upfront standpoint of saying, well, if you put a level on it, a measurable level, then they have to adhere to it to the best of their ability, and then beyond that, you know how to fix it. That's why the unreasonable.
Well, I won't speak for the code enforcement guy to my left, but the enforcing decibel level issue goes beyond this zoning ordinance. It's a broader township code issue. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. But.
Yeah, I think my only comment to this particular would be, either a condition would be written in now into the ordinance, or a condition during approval that the applicant and eventual property owner would have to provide a annual noise study at their cost, right? That would take the burden off the township. Yeah. However, they would have to provide that. Again, it would come down to the township staff having to still have that follow-up. However, the burden then is placed back on the property owner. It's not on the township.
Right.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
But to your point, noise ordinances are very hard to enforce.
Right.
Yeah. When it comes down to staff local level.
I mean,
right, because you don't have the staff to do it. Understand that?
Yeah, and an easy example would be if the thing is making a lot of noise at 11 o'clock at night. Nobody's working at the township at 11 o'clock at night, right? And we don't have police to go check out what's going on at 11 o'clock at night. So the enforcement side of it is the hardest part of the noise part of it. But I think that you can try to address the issue through these studies and through follow-up. Like Vince said, that's a good idea, follow-up studies. We have seen that, I think, Nate, in other townships that do sound studies at different intervals, right? Pre, during, initial use, and then post. So that's a good idea. But when we presented this to you, Nate, I think you could attest that I said, I think this noise section still needs some work. So your comments are well received. I've written down all your notes. I mean, just in case, because I know you're new to the Planning Commission, and for anyone listening, these will be conditional uses, which means that the Board of Commissioners, you first get to recommend conditions, and then the Board of Commissioners will get to impose whatever reasonable conditions they deem appropriate based on what's presented, depending on the size and location and all other factors relating to this proposed use. So the criteria in the ordinance is very important because we base those conditions primarily on those criteria, but there can be additional ones if they're justified by the evidence that's presented.
And they can be suggested based on each admission or submission?
Yes.
So per
each use, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Specific to the use, for sure.
Because it could also be dependent on where it's located, and
Right.
Noise may not be an issue in one place, but it may be a larger issue. Same with water, et cetera.
Right. Fortunately,
So you're saying, go on.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So you're suggesting that that's actually the better way you keep the ordinance a little bit more vague, and then per submission you go a little bit more specific.
Right.
Based on the concern of where it's located.
And of course, you can't just go out of left field with
Correct.
some kind of thing.
No.
It would be based on what they present.
Right.
That does happen, but where things come out of left field. But based on what's presented, you certainly have the opportunity to impose things specifically to this use. And fortunately, like Nate said, there aren't that many spots left in the township for these things to go. And the ones that are left are hopefully not in a location that would disturb too many adjacent uses.
Okay.
But I think to that same point, though, we still have to look at any properties that are in these districts that could potentially at one point be a reuse,
Sure.
which may be closer to a residential. So we should get it in now, like we're suggesting.
Right, because a data center can be of any size.
Right. I can, unless Nate wants to, I can talk. The energy usage part is also a difficult one because of the still undetermined issue of whether anything we do would be preempted by what the state wants to do with these centers, and what the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, controls with energy usage. So your renewable energy idea is good, but I definitely need to research that on whether we could impose that kind of a regulation on this type of use without interfering with public utility rights.
Yeah, I mean, the concern is that I think, our grid, it supplies a lot of energy to a lot of residents and a lot of businesses. And when a data center comes in, they just suck it all away. So that's why, creating something new and something in the renewable energy field not only helps grow that sector, but it also helps alleviate the burden on the PJM grid as it exists now.
Certainly.
So I'd appreciate the looking into it a little bit more from a legal perspective of what we're allowed to impose or suggest.
Sure.
Is that all of the, I think that we covered all of Planning Commissioner Mack's questions, correct? I definitely think we'll look at the language for sure on sound insulation and factor that in, and we will get back with updated language for the sound, and Solicitor Fisher and myself will continue to look at the energy aspect as well.
Yeah, I think the only other one is the liquid cooling mandate, which a suggestion, I should say, not mandate. I think you have it as a closed loop.
We do.
But I would just want to potentially add in the fact that it's, because I don't know all the details of how it actually gets cooled, if it's if it's a closed loop, if a liquid cooling is an option, or if there is another option. I just know that the liquid cooling uses less water in the end. So if that could be looked into a little bit more of how how a closed loop system works.
Yep, absolutely.
And I also think Jennifer's idea of adding in these different follow-up studies at different intervals, wherever we can request that the applicant pay for different follow-up studies, whether it's about noise, water, other types of environmental impacts. I think that would be really helpful to monitor, to assess what's happening, to be a responsible citizen, to have that data.
Got it.
And what about the thought as far as, like, I know that we don't have the staff to go out there with a decibel measurement, but what about putting that on them, on a data center, to be like, every year you have to take a measurement from X time of day to what have you, till the next 14 days to figure out that average? Is that something that, maybe that's a conditional use, maybe that's added along the way, or is that something that we would consider putting in the ordinance?
I think that as part of that follow-up noise study, that could be something that they have to submit. You can certainly put in the criteria that you want measured. Whether they think they're compliant or not becomes the next issue, right?
Sure.
So, but we can certainly look at putting in what the criteria for the follow-up study would be. And that definitely is in some other ordinances that we've looked at.
Okay.
So, I believe. So.
Okay. Thank you.
The more hard data we can have, it
Sure.
makes it easier to argue or defend whatever position we take going forward. So, great suggestions, great feedback from everyone. Anything else?
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to our last agenda item, staff and department report.
Sure. I have this here just so I can give everybody a bit of an update, since we do have a number of projects that are in queue and on the time clock for the MPC, but we have them in the pending application section. So just so everybody knows, we're still waiting to hear back from Red Maple Acres as to what plan of action that they want to take based off of staff review and life safety review at the site. Indian Creek Road, the Hart Preserve, we had a staff level meeting with the applicants some time ago, and we're awaiting a resubmission based off of staff feedback. We also had a similar staff level meeting in person at Iron Run regarding Iron Run Estates on the Church Lane property to address staff and technical engineering concerns for the site. We're expecting that they're going to look at those concerns and potentially make a resubmission addressing them. Costco Fuel Facility, we're awaiting a submission to the zoning hearing board. Several aspects of their plan proposal that was submitted does require zoning relief. So we're waiting to see if and when they're going to make that submission. And last but not least, regarding the estates at Woodmere, this is at Mertztown Road. While the homes for the project are technically in Upper Macungie Township, the township here will be receiving and will be managing stormwater for the site with a basin. We did have a staff level meeting with them as well to express concerns about design to make sure that everything was well in hand, and we're awaiting a resubmission. So we have a number of projects where we've interacted with the applicants to make sure that we're providing as much assistance and comment as possible to guide them through the process and hopefully get submissions back in the near future. But those are all still on the radar for the Planning Commission at some point in time. Additionally, we're going to continue working on some of the other aspects of the zoning ordinance that we mentioned previously. So more to come on that, but obviously this evening and in the immediate future, we are focusing on the data center. So I don't have anything else. I would like to open it up to Chris, Mark, and Vince if they'd like to share anything with the Planning Commission.
I don't have anything further. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Same here, nothing further. Thanks, Nate.
All right. Well, that concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions on the Planning Commissioners on any of those topics we brought up? If not, we can. That concludes my my quick report for you.
No?
No.
All right. Thank you.
So if there aren't any other comments or questions, anyone want to make a motion to end our meeting?
Motion.
Anyone second? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting closed, 6:50, 6 p.m.
Good night, everyone.
Have
Good
a
night,
great
everybody.
night.
Thank you very
Hey.
much for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, next time Megan's there, please ask her a bunch of questions. She got away way too easy.
Hope you feel better, Brian.
Thanks. I am on the mend. Just tonight would have been pushing it, so I was very appreciative that Megan was willing to step up. So I'll see you guys next month.
Sounds good.
Hope you feel better.
Thanks.